What's up, guys? I would like to talk a little bit about Battleborn and how I view the game currently. The game on PC is very hard to play at this moment. Hovering around 400-ish players on a daily basis, it seems like it truly needs some help. Battleborn, to me, is actually a pretty fun game. How did it end up like this? I have a few points to discuss. Keep in mind that this is from the perspective of a late adopter on PC. Each of these topics could also fill volumes on their own, but I will try and keep it as succinct as possible. But first, a bit of disclosure. I purchased this game on sale from the Humble Bundle a while back, wanting to try it out. This is also my first Gearbox game, and as such, I had not followed anything related to them outside the Aliens Colonial Marines fiasco. I've played over 70 hours of it now. I say played, but that number is probably not quite accurate. A lot of that time was spent sitting in queues, but it was also spent in the equipment menu setting stuff up, but not nearly as much time that was spent there. The first thing I want to talk about is matchmaking. The matchmaking of Battleborn is baffling. It finds 5 people at a time rather than evenly filling up both sides of a game simultaneously. It offers no way to start a match with fewer than 10 people. What this means is that, since the game is currently having population problems, it can take a while to fill up an entire team and to then find opponents. Even worse, the players are unable to pass the time through chat. Players are only able to chat with their team if it is full at 5. If a team finishes a match and stays together, they can continue chatting. If a team finishes an entire game and someone drops, you cannot chat with anyone until it is once again 5 people, even if the other players remain the same. No one likes sitting in queues, but it would sure help pass the time if players were able to talk to their prospective teammates and perhaps come up with a plan or strategy. There is no drop-in or out system to help fill in the spaces left by people who disconnect and are gone for long periods of time. I'm aware that this might be a difficult problem to solve due to the nature of Battleborn and its shards/currency and leveling systems, but I would take something over the current nothing. All too often, someone will disconnect or leave and that team will just die a slow death. Sure, it might be possible to win 4 versus 5, but that is extremely unlikely. I lost far more games than I ever won due to people disconnecting in one way or another. It is a regular occurrence. It is also extremely discouraging and further hurts the game for many. A lot of people like to throw around the fact that pre-made teams ruin the game, and I disagree with this. The reason is because those people are just trying to play the game too. Sure, they might be way better than the random pickup group, but the fact that randoms run into them on a regular basis is a symptom of the game's population being a tragedy. My next major point is tutorials. Battleborn lacks severely in anything resembling in-game tutorials. PvE is pretty self-explanatory, and one can easily deduce what it is that they need to do to progress. So kudos to the developers for that one. PvP, however, is a total farcical disaster. When jumping into a game, you get a brief spiel from Nova, condensing the current game mode into an overly simplified and useless piece of dialogue that does not really help at all. After playing many games over time, I learned a lot about what does what, and what works best, and why people do certain things a certain way. However, none of this is explained in the game. None of it. There's no training area for players to try out new heroes and their talent trees. There's not even a keyword database. Something like that would be great for helping people learn how types of gear function in the game. Example of where this might be useful. Gear that says, quote-unquote, on pickup, works for shard pickups. However, what it does not state is that you have to shoot a shard cluster to break it to trigger that specific effect. Why? Nowhere does it tell players that if they build up defenses around the sentry, but were unable to keep it alive, that they would lose all the buildables upon its death, no matter how many shards they use or what tier the buildable was. This is a major point of relevance that is completely ignored. Did you know that there is a way to return to base and fully heal yourself? Yup, there is, in fact, a key for that. No joke. There is a ton of stuff missing that is left completely unexplained to new players. I bet there's a ton of stuff I do not even know still to this day. Next major point, modes and queues. The game modes themselves are also worlds apart. In Incursion is a one-lane MOBA-style game where you have to destroy the big enemy sentries to win. This is currently where everyone plays. Like it or not, if you want to play multiplayer, it will have to be Incursion. Having so few players, they only stick to one area because splitting up would just make it more of a ghost town. Meltdown is a two-lane game where the object is to feed one's minions to a grinder for points. This mode has fewer surprises, but is still a huge learning curve for new players. Maps are quite large and often multi-tiered and intricate. Unfortunately, almost no one plays this mode. If you want to play it, tough. Capture is just like domination from Call of Duty or whatever other variant is suitable. The surprise here is that killing the Viralcy that spawn offer gargantuan experience bonuses. They are, however, in short supply. It makes them extremely valuable. Despite Nova mentioning this in the intro, it is not expressed exactly how big of a role they can play. Regardless, it is a non-issue since this game mode, like Meltdown, is basically unplayable currently. PvE missions seem like they are better off done solo. Fortunately, they scale based on the number of players, so this is not a huge problem. It is still more fun with friends, however. The third thing I would like to discuss, terrible advertising. From what I can tell, personally, this game was advertised very poorly. I know a lot of people say Overwatch buried it, and I guess that is true. However, I heard of Overwatch before I heard of Battleborn, and I believe Battleborn was announced far earlier. If Battleborn was announced earlier, why did I basically hear nothing about it until it launched? I peruse gaming sites on a regular basis and saw nothing about it. It is entirely possible I just missed it. This is the first Gearbox game I have ever played, after all. If they marketed Battleborn, it certainly did not grab me. If I missed it, though, others surely did as well. If they were banking purely on their own fan base, then they grossly overestimated their market influence. I have a few minor points which I've lumped into a miscellaneous category. This game's progression has been lambasted by many as being too steep or slow. I'm not really sure I agree with that, but perhaps I am more tolerant than many people. It is pretty slow and all you can do is lose, though. That is a fact. With people leaving and disconnecting all the time, you can be absolutely positive your progression will crawl along. It took me up to almost command rank 50 to unlock Alani, and I spent not a single credit up until then. There are a lot of reports flying around about how the game is unplayable for many, that it has poor optimization. While the game runs not quite as well as I would personally like on my machine, it is certainly playable. If the accounts other people have are true, then this should have been one of the top priorities of the development team at launch. No one wants a broken game, especially one that people actively want to play. There are many reports of a non-existent customer service in regards to reporting cheating players and the like. While I have not encountered anything like that, to my knowledge, it is still something to consider. Bad customer service can ruin you. Character balance is something I do not wish to discuss. While I have played a fair bit of the game, I would absolutely not be in any position to give an informed opinion on this. There are characters I absolutely hate, sure, but that is totally normal for any competitive game. Game mode balance is another one, which I am not really certain. Of the three modes, I certainly think Incursion is the least fun and most lopsided. As for ideas on how to fix it, I would rather leave that to more experienced players. Most of my gameplay experience is very biased due to the aforementioned multitude of disconnects and heavy number of losses I've experienced.
Almost there. Hang on.
That is basically all I wanted to touch on. There are a lot more items that could be discussed, but they are less relevant to these major problems. I wrote a review for this game on my blog, and if you want to read it, I will add a link in the description below. Basically, the game can be a ton of fun and is certainly worth playing. I really hope with some development time it can be a game with a thriving community. It is a real shame that it is in the state that it is. Thank you very much for listening. Peace.
Cleese, the EMP, now!
I can't! The conservators locked down the whole observatory! You must kill it, quickly!
work? Did we do it?
The Eldred triumphed for once, and it's all